Let's create our first project and scheme. In the project interface, you see a list of other projects, whether they're your own or others that are shared. Each person is going to have a different view since you'll have your own projects and you'll have other projects that are shared from other users in your list. Here's a list of my projects, but I'm going to create a brand new project. So I'm going to go up to the top and say Add New Project. And let's give it a name. I'm going to give it my name, Kimon's First Project. You could give it a project number if you'd like, and a project budget if you have one. We can always edit these later on in any kind of description. So, hospital project. This is kind of the intro to the project, and underneath the project there are going to be other schemes related to that project. So we see my first project right here. If I collapse it and open it, you'll notice that there isn't any other project here. You can also delete it and even change the settings, and you see the project budget even listed here if you entered it. So now let's add a scheme. A scheme sits within a project, and you can move schemes around later and edit them and delete them, and a lot of things can be done. But let's just start with a simple empty scheme, just starting from scratch. There's a lot of other options, but just pick the first blue link at the top of adding an empty scheme. So here I'm going to call it Kimon's First Scheme. And you have a choice below of going imperial or metric or dollars or euros, the Revit categories and minimal set. We'll just keep these at a default for now. And on the right there's a map. This is actually a Google map where you can search and say I want to find a zip code or a city. So I'm going to type in Dallas and it zooms to Dallas. This is just a typical Google map interface here. And you can even expand it to full screen on the upper right. So if I expand this to full screen, I can see the map of Dallas. And I can also go into satellite view. And interestingly enough, because of Google Maps functionality, if you go into satellite view, you even get some pretty good detail, even in 3D, of a site like this. So let's zoom back out and find a site. Either you've typed in a specific site, or maybe you just know the general location and you're going to go find a site on the map. In fact, I think there's a hospital right there. Yeah, Parkland Hospital. So let's go pick a site here. And a site, you can there's two tools. There's basically a polygon tool or a rectangle tool. Let's pick the polygon and see how this works. You're basically clicking on a point, and you could be as tight in or as zoomed out as you'd like, and this can be edited later, so you can be very rough in the beginning and keep on refining it as you get more information about the site. Obviously if you had a site property line file in GIS or BIM or other formats, you would have a very specific site, but this is a great way to start just with very minimal information, but actually it's relatively accurate. So we have this, and you can click on a point and move it and add new points and keep on refining it, or just keep it rough like this. So let's collapse the map view again, and this again is in 3D even. Yeah, there we go, it's in 3D. As we're zooming out, you actually see the map, the view of 3D, including the property line. So you can get pretty accurate with this tool. Collapse it, it drops back into the Onuma interface. There are other ways of importing KMZ and KML files, and later on even other formats to get that site plan, but now let's just stick with this, our first site. And on the lower left, there's a proceed. So it grabbed that property line, or that boundary, landed it in the Onuma interface at the site level. And this is a good chance to kind of give you an overview of their site. And later on we're going to jump into building. But let's just focus on the site again here. So this is the initial site that we created. And we can continue to refine it even here. So in the Onuma system, there's a few more tools, not a whole bunch actually. We keep them intentionally relatively simple. There are 3 panels. You can collapse the panels just if you want to look only at the map. So let's do that for a second. The interface here also at the map, on the map view on the right, this is actually using Esri's, not Google Earth. Actually, we started with Google Earth earlier, but now we're in Esri and we can go to even a street view in Esri. So this points to the fact that in Onuma there's a lot of different links to other applications. You can even have your own GIS server, for example, but we're just using the public GIS data from Esri. We can even collapse the upper panel here to get more space, and then you see the tools on the right. There's a pan tool, so you can pan around, turn off the hand and the panning stops. There's a selection tool. You'll notice that there's a lock on this polygon. If we double click on the polygon, we can unlock it. There's a lot of other options here, but let's skip those for now. So I'm going to unlock it to allow me to continue to edit. And the editing that's possible in Onuma, let's just start with this polygon that we started in Google Earth. I'm turning off the pan. There are two toggles here. One is to drag an object. So you can drag this whole site around, and you can undo. The back button here is undo or Z. And then there's also a toggle reshape button. So as these turn red on the right, that means it's enabled. So as I turn on toggle, you'll notice that there are points on the map. And we'll spend a little bit of time here on this basic interface of changing a shape. We're changing the shape of a site, but it's going to be very similar at the building and at the space and at other levels within Onuma. These are basically the set of tools. In Onuma, if you grab a point, it turns red, and there's an X that you can actually delete that point, for example, or I can grab a point and move it, moving a point freeform like this. The other editing is if you hover over an edge, you'll notice that it gets fat. And I can grab that edge and move it as well. You notice it just stays parallel to the original position. And the points as well, if there's a plus button, if I hit the plus, it adds another node here. So that node then becomes additional. So it's pretty basic functionality that lets you quickly generate a shape with minimal training basically on these graphical tools. And that's one of the strengths of Onuma, is that you have these simple tools to even edit shapes. And also if you hit the Option button on the Mac and the Alt button, I believe, on Windows, you can actually move the edge, the corner in freeform. If I didn't hold that, it would actually keep it orthogonal. You notice that it just stays like that. But then if I click on Option or Alt, it lets you go freeform and change the shape. And that's basically it for the functionality of refining a site and editing a site. And if every move that we make as we navigate away from this interface, it automatically gets saved, or you can also force a save. So save to server is this little diskette icon, and that basically is forcing a save. You'll notice that it says saving. Depending on your speed, it's pretty fast usually, but if you have a large file or whatever, sometimes you'll notice the saving function happening, or if your connection goes bad, then you'll notice that it might take longer. So that's one of the things that you should watch out for as you're working in Onuma. But if everything just completely shuts down, for example, and this is saved, it's still, I can log in from another computer and see this exact view here as long as it has been saved. And this goes for all of the interfaces. You'll notice that this is just one polygon here, so it moves pretty quickly. You can zoom in and out with the buttons here, zoom in, zoom out, or with your mouse wheel, you can scroll in and out. And with the space bar, you can hold and pan, or you can click on the pan button. So these basic functionality, it's important to kind of realize what's possible here. There's other icons here that we'll cover later. Also back to Google Earth. So this button here, the georeference button, reopens again the interface that we started with. And you'll notice now that actually the shape of the site has changed. So you can even continue to edit here if you really wanted to. So there's many different ways of working with the interface for the site editing in Onuma. So we've created our first project, landed our first scheme within the project, identified a location in the site, and now we're ready to start doing additional work with this, of sharing the project with others in the studio. So let's open this up here at the top and look at the Accounts button. The Accounts button shows us who else is in the studio, who else is logged in the studio. and I can create user groups, which I've already predefined. Onuma system training, we've added everybody in the studio. And then the my team in Onuma, we've added them as training editors. So you can continue to add more groups or add other users to these studios. A pull down appears. And then the reason for that, why that's important, is when you go to share this, sharing the scheme allows me to allow the other users within Onuma to be able to see what I have done. Because it's web-based and because I've saved my work here, I'm able to then share this with other users and have them edit as well. So let's go into the sharing button, and we see options for sharing. So what I'm going to do with this scheme, this brand new scheme, this brand new site I created, I'm going to hit the share and share with the following user groups. I'm going to share with the entire system training team, and you see a pop-up that shows who's on that team. So now if I save this, it's going to allow this team to view only, read only the scheme. I can also share it with another group for edit as well. So I'm going to share it with a smaller subset that they can also edit. So I might have, for example, clients that I want to see what's going on and other collaborators that I want them to add additional information. I'm going to save that. So now this scheme has been shared and is ready to be viewed by other users. But how do they even know that this is available to them? If they open up their project list, it would show up on their project list and scheme, but I can also send them a note directly from this scheme. We call this BIM mail. The reason it's called BIM mail is because we are inside a BIM looking at a site, and I can send a mail to my team. I select a single user. I'm going to send it to Young maybe, or to the entire group, and say, my first site plan. Can you take a look and edit where we should consider landing a new clinic? So what happens here is, and I can, if I have a PDF or a sketch, I can attach other things to this as well. So this interface of the location and the site becomes an interface not only to view the site, but also to collaborate with other users and to add additional information, including other files and PDFs and sketches, or even entire models if you wanted to. If you had a Revit model, for example, you could add it as an attachment to the scheme. I click Send BIM Mail. So this is sending a message through this interface to the other user, and they will get a mail message with a link back to this view that I look at right here. So it's a quick way of getting them to look at the scheme that I just did. And that's pretty much it for this lesson. So we would like you to try this yourself. Go back to Project List. And here's my first scheme. You can add additional schemes to this. So if we say add additional empty scheme, I basically go through the same process again and say add second scheme, and the same thing again. Search on a map, click on a site. It can be as accurate or as rough as you like on this first selection, because you can continue to refine it, and hit proceed. And now I have my second scheme.